As the rolling blackouts continue to the anger of many South Africans, there are varying views on what it will take to resolve the Eskom crisis. Former Statistician-General Dr Pali Lehohla says the issue is at leadership level, and he says with the right people at the helm, the power utility can turn its fortunes around. Let's speak to him now about this further. Dr Pali Lehohla joins us live now. Thank you so much for your time, Dr Lehohla. You say the issue starts with the leadership. How so?
Indeed, yes. The Eskom is an SOE of government that plays a very strategic role in the state. Provides power to families, provides power to business and industry. It's designed by Bayo was that it should be that which provides power to industry and powers the economic growth of South Africa. So it is a strategic asset. What has the government done? The government, in recapitalizing or building up an Eskom, it decided to go and borrow money from the market, therefore hoping that through user pay, Eskom loans could be paid. When actually government had access to things like pensions of government pensions, which they could borrow from at low rate using local currency, and therefore taking a long-term view around the issues of energy security, rather than going to the market where you have to borrow in dollars, and when the rand and the dollar exchange rate goes the way it is, then your loan actually increases. The second thing was political interference. The government got in there since about 2012 or 2014. They appointed Donald, is not an engineer. They then replaced him with Brian Melefe, who is not an engineer. From there, then there was Pagaman, who is not an engineer. Then there was Mabuza, his soul rest in peace, who was not an engineer. And then Delighted, who is not an engineer. Both at the board and at the level of the operations of Eskom, there's no engineer. The technical issues at Eskom are about power generation at the moment, and that requires engineers and economists. The economists have to translate the engineering design into an economic results. Now you have an accountant who thinks about accountancy and then thinks about going to pay the loan instead of asking the questions around the economics of Eskom. So the writer now is busy looking at how best he can prepay the loan of Eskom, and he's paid 80 billion. Improved the balance sheet, but has destroyed the economy.
And Dr. Lehohla, how much of this, though, can, we apportion only to the leadership at Eskom? What is government's role and responsibility here? Because you're also talking about them and their failures. How much of a responsibility do they shoulder for what we are seeing? And I ask this because, this is a problem that dates back to 2008, for example. We even saw former President Thabo Mbeki even apologizing at some point for ignoring the warnings of Eskom. And here we are today. There are also concerns being raised about, how the minister, Pravin Gordhan, has handled this crisis. At the same time, others are saying the president also did not handle this crisis correctly. So how much of the blame does government shoulder here as well?
President Mbeki started on EDP and Kusini. And then, of course, the Treasury decided to deal with the basis for funding Eskom wrongly. It had to be, so the funding of Eskom is wrong. That design is terribly wrong. It even goes wrong now that the IPPs are guaranteed by Treasury. And we know that the IPPs, important as they might be, don't provide base load. And in context of this crisis, what has to be done is to look at making sure that all the plants, fire-powered plants, are all hands on deck. Now you're asking me, who has to blame? Right away, it will rest with the president and Pravin. That's where the blame is. Those are the people who appoint. Those are the people who decide. So you can't blame anybody else. At this point, it sits with the president.
So So one of the things that we've also seen, and you've mentioned here as well, you say that, engineers should be at the helm at Eskom. Who, in your view, do you think then is supposed to be steering the ship towards, a turn of its economic fortunes and also doing what it needs to do, which is to provide electricity to the people of South Africa?
We've got a number of engineers from Habasha to a number of them that ran Eskom for the 100 years to date. The last 10 years, Eskom has been run by non-engineers, and this is disaster that you have got. I can't mention names, or rather, get the best engineers who have been there in Eskom. The government knows them. But you cannot go with a hailer out into the public asking for engineers with a hailer and hope that engineers who are worth their salt will come and run will be led by the right. He cannot. I mean, anybody who respects himself as an engineer, Ted Blom, Matsila Koko, and others cannot be led by the right.
In some of what we've seen in the public domain when it comes to, what you're arguing here when it comes to Eskom, there are suggestions, that you are also saying that Matsila Koko should be the one that is allowed to run Eskom. I know you say right now that you do not want to be mentioning names, but let's talk about that because, there are some who would say that how does he go back and run it when there are still some issues that still need to be addressed there?
No. I think what I said is listen to him. And when you have listened to him, you can decide whether to appoint him. But his ideas and the issues that he has raised as an engineer are consistent throughout. And they are an engineer's argument. If he has issues, he must go and answer for those issues. And if he has to go to jail, he must go to jail. But the first thing that he answered to was about whether he cooks the books. Justice Ngwepe said Matsila didn't cook the books. And that was the biggest part of the narrative. There is another one that deals with whether he stole money or not. That still has to be dealt by law enforcement. And that still has to be clarified. And he himself says, I'm here, I'm prepared to answer. So that's the man we have. But to have the writer there who is not an engineer to try and deal with an engineering process, and he's an accountant and not an economist, and we expect that will resolve the problem, it's actually cloud cuckoo.
What do you say then about what is going on internally right now? Because there is that process where there were names that were to be submitted by Union Solidarity to try and, bring back the issue of skills on the table to address that. But of course, we saw unions coming out to say that that is not going to help. In fact, it's to try and bring back the old guard. At the same time, you have engineers, we hear, that are also demoralized. So it does look like the problems here.
The engineers who have their thoughts started leaving Eskom by 2010. They are busy with big projects across the world. You cannot go with a hailer to try and get those engineers to come and leave their substantive work to come and report to the writer. They are the serious businesses, serious work. What you are getting, you are getting mediocrity. You cannot have a real engineer to come and report to an accountant who has failed over 3 years. Look, let me tell you something. They say he has serious problems. I was the Statistician-General. I knew which statisticians across the world I would have to contact, bring and help me deal with issues of economic statistics in South Africa. I didn't go with a hailer to go and search for these people. I knew them. So an accountant will know accountants. And he is unable to bring engineers because he doesn't know those engineers. And any self-respecting engineer who is called by an accountant will not believe in that, having seen the failure, dramatic failure that is happening at Eskom. No one who is worth their salt will come for that kind of nonsense.
All right, and Dr. Lehohla, unfortunately, that's all we have time for. But thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I do appreciate it. That is the former Statistician-General, Dr. Pali Lehohla, talking to us about the developments around Eskom, saying that it's time to bring back, engineers to be able to run Eskom. He argues that if you have people that are not engineers at the helm, it doesn't, it's not going to turn the fortunes of this particular company, which is supposed to, of course, be providing electricity to South Africans. And of course, this is part of all the stories that are developing around the power utility. Listen.